I encourage people to name your 4 characters because that way you can identify them much more readily. I call my character 1 Helen. She gets it done. She's busy. Where does she hang out? She hangs out on the phone. She hangs out online. She hangs out taking care of business. She's my do go. She's my boss. So then the left emotional tissue right below that is what I call character 2. And the left emotional, as I stated before, is all the pain from the past. I name mine Abby. So that's character 1 and 2 in the left brain. And then we go into character 3 in the right brain. And that's the emotional, experiential, limbic tissue of the present moment. What is the experience like? What does it feel like to be alive? And then there's this character 4, which I call that right thinking tissue. And just think about it. What's it doing? It's in the present moment. It's not in the past. It's not in the future. It doesn't relate to me, the individual. It is literally this big ball of energy connecting to the big ball energy of the universe. So when we know these 4 parts of ourselves, then we gain the ability, it's like a roadmap to who and how I want to be in any moment. Really, the beauty of whole brain living is how do I find my own peace?
Okay, I'm joined here with Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor. Now, to get started, Dr. Jill, I heard you say in another interview that if I wipe out a group of cells in my left hemisphere, boundaries dissolve and I can no longer tell where I begin and end. So this strikes me as a really important statement. So can you just maybe expand on the implications of what we're talking about here for our basic sense of identity in the world and even how we treat each other?
Absolutely. So when we look at the human brain, every ability that we have is because we have brain cells that perform that function. So I have language, I can speak, I have cells that perform that function. You have ears, you have auditory cortex, you can process that sound. And then you have groups of sounds that place meaning on what I'm saying. So if we wipe out those cells, then we simply are still ourselves, but we no longer have those functions. So there's a group of cells inside of our brain that brings in information from all of our motor systems and from our skin. And that sensory information goes and gets compiled. And then that, because of those cells, I have the perception that I begin and end where my skin meets air, because that's what those cells do. There's also another group of cells in that left hemisphere that says, I am Jill Bolte Taylor. I am an individual and I am separate, and I can see that I'm separate because I know that I begin and end where my skin meets air. So if those cells in that left brain go offline, then I'm still in my body. I'm still me. I still have the perception of sensory information coming in, and perhaps motor movement might be altered, but overall. But I no longer have this boundary of where I begin and end. And in the absence of that definition of self as I begin and end where my skin meets air, I perceive myself to be a big ball of energy, because that is what I actually am. So as we think about ourselves as a human being, as an individual, as a single solid separate from other people, that is a function of the cells in the left brain. In the absence of that, though, I still am a living being, and I have awareness. I have sensory information coming in. I have information processing, but I'm an organic creature. And organic creatures exist in the present moment and are this magical combination between matter, density of matter, cells, organization of cells, and the energy that is moving all those different parts around inside of the cell, which is the wonder of life. So to my right hemisphere, I am this massive collection of 50 trillion beautiful molecular geniuses called my cells that are all differentiated to do different things and have different functions. But to the left brain, then it takes that perception of what is in the present moment and starts to define it and to constrict it and to to have linearity across time with it, which is a miracle of all things if we get to have that conversation. So we end up with these two beautiful hemispheres that allow us to manifest in the world as a conscious being, where I define myself as separate from you because of those cells in the left hemisphere.
Well, that's a fascinating way to start the conversation. So you gave a TED talk. I think it was 2008. My stroke of insight, and you talk about your experience of having a left hemisphere stroke. Something that I was curious to ask you about going into this conversation was, did that experience change your view on consciousness? Like, what was your view on consciousness before you had that experience, and what is it now? And in the sense of, does the brain produce consciousness, or is there something else at work here?
So I'm 65 years old now, which meant I was in school back in the 80s and 90s. And there were two things as brain scientists, as neuroscientists, that we were not allowed to talk about. They were taboo. One was energy, the concept of energy, unless we're talking about mitochondria and their ability inside of the cell to create energy, ATP. The other thing was consciousness. Now, we all knew that we had gone into neuro because we were fascinated by consciousness, but the only conversations we could have, you would never write about consciousness in a paper. I mean, you would just be blackballed, and thrown out as a serious scientist. But it literally was a taboo subject. So I think that my interest in myself as a biological creature that has consciousness, and what is brain death and what is death of the body, of the organic organism, what is the definition of death, when is a human actually dead, because all the different cells in the body die at different rates. So I actually wrote a paper when I had to write this big paper for my literature course, and mine was on brain death. Okay, well, that was because I was fascinated with it early, but really I was interested in consciousness. And I don't know I think I was asking more questions than having answers before the stroke, but I was dedicated to the magnificence of learning more about the brain, the body, the cells. So I was a gross anatomist, body anatomist. I was a histologist, tissue, which is collections of cells, and then I was a neuroanatomist for the organization of the brain. So all of my world became, what are we as a biological human being? After the stroke, what I did was, as the stroke happened, it was a hemorrhagic stroke, which is a relatively rare form of stroke. And usually these people, if they survive, then they generally may recover more quickly. But the severity of urgency, because you have a bleed in your brain, so these people often die. I did not die that day, clearly, and I did have a complete recovery, but it took 8 years. And during that 8 years, what I was consciously doing was, even though I had lost the skill sets of the left hemisphere, the I am an individual, where do I begin and end, all those things went offline. Linearity of across time went offline, so I didn't have any past. I didn't have an understanding of the future. All I had was right here, right now, what's in front of me, present moment processing, which is what that right hemisphere does. And then I used what I understood about neurons, the primary cells of the nervous system, to purposely rebuild the circuits in the left hemisphere that had gone offline, so I could regain some of the abilities that I knew that I had lost, and that I knew that I had had because I had been a normal human being, and I couldn't do those things anymore, like speak language or understand language, or know where I began and ended. So, or have linearity across time. So for me, consciousness after the stroke was kind of a laying on new layers of consciousness that come with new levels of ability. And so to me, consciousness isn't just I'm a conscious human and there you have it. It's like, no, I am differently conscious if I don't have language. I'm still conscious, but I'm differently conscious. I'm still conscious if I don't know the boundaries of where I begin and end. I'm still conscious. So then the question becomes even more interesting of, instead of when is the body dead, from which I came from high school with, was, what is consciousness, and how do we, to me, it literally is a miracle that we each have the cells that allow us the ability to communicate with another 50 trillion molecular geniuses in a way that we actually think we understand one another. I mean, the phenomenon of what we are as human beings is so amazing. And, but most people don't think about that. So to me, it's like, oh, I'm having a bad day because it's raining and I wanted to go, for a picnic. Well, that just becomes so trite when you really go back to the phenomenon of, oh my God, but I have eyes that see because I have these cells that process information. Literally a third of the cells in the brain are involved with our ability to experience vision. I think it's all a matter of how we focus our consciousness. What cells do we have? What skills do they give us? And then if those go away, am I still conscious? Well, yeah, I'm still conscious, no question. I might not be able to communicate with you. I might be flat, and appear to be unconscious, but it looks like my liver cells are still working. And is there a level of body consciousness? So you've just asked me an enormous question.
I heard, and I might be getting this wrong, so correct me if I am, but when you had that stroke and you didn't have the function of these cells of the left hemisphere, the predominant emotional state wasn't one of fear or emptiness. It was predominantly love. Is
Oh yeah,
that fair to say?
yeah, joy and love. Joy and love. But it was when I was if you wipe out, so as we think about our brain, the normal human, technically speaking, as far as the medical world is concerned, 1/4 of our brain is conscious. And that consciousness is in the left thinking portion of our brain that defines the boundaries of where we are, defines me, the individual. I am Jill Bolte Taylor. I begin and end where skin meets the air. And I have skill sets of language so that I can actually relate my internal world to the external world. And that portion of our brain defines what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is bad, what is the social norm. And it's the job of this portion of my brain to know what is the social norm so I can fit myself inside of the social norm, and I can be a accepted member of the pack of humanity. Okay, so but that's only 1/4 of the cells in the brain. The other 3/4 of our brain are technically viewed as part of our unconscious or our subconscious brain. And that's going to be the emotional tissue in the left hemisphere, the emotional tissue in the right hemisphere, because gosh knows we can't control our emotions, right? I mean, that's certainly what we've been taught as a society. So they just happen on automatic and they just run. And so that's part of the subconscious. And then Lord only knows what's happening in that right thinking tissue because it's in the right here, right now, but it has no rational thinking. It has no boundaries of where it begins and ends. It has no past. It has no future. It has no linearity across time. And so we just kind of view the right hemisphere as this dumb oaf that has no language. Well, I don't think that's very kind. So when I lost that left thinking rational portion of my brain and all I had was the right portion of my brain, then I could recognize that in the beginning when I first woke up, all I felt was this overwhelming sense of love. And so think about that. The left hemisphere, thinking and emotion is shut down. The experiential of the right hemisphere, right here, right now, emotional limbic tissue, that's doing virtually nothing because I feel like my body feels like a ton of lead laying in the bed. I don't know the boundaries of where the organization of my limbs. I don't know anything about my body. And all I have is this conscious awareness of I'm still alive. I'm still alive. Oh my God. And in that, oh my God, I'm still alive was this overall sense of love and magnificence. And I didn't die that day. You know, I thought I was on my way toward death. So I was alive. And that's all I had was I'm alive. But in that experience of love, it was that was enough because here I was, this magnificent biological creature who was alive. The difference between being a biological creature that is not alive versus alive is all I had, and it was all I needed.
Okay, okay. Something that came to mind whenever I was preparing for this, Dr. Jill, was, and again, this might go nowhere. I just want to throw it out there. So in the story in the story of Genesis, they have this idea of the fall, where man ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and this is sort of like where we become conscious of good and bad, right or wrong, or whatever. And whenever I was reading your work, I was like, is the development of these language centers in the left hemisphere, is the story in Genesis like a metaphorical representation of that biological reality? Have you thought about this at all?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you consider that you know, the fall of woman is that she is now thinking, and in that thinking rational left brain, um the knowledge, the pursuit of knowledge is the fall. Well, you know, I mean, just think about it. If we look at mankind, if we look at animals, the distinguishing factor between typical mammals and the human mammal is the cerebral cortex, the outer undulated convoluted portion of our brain. And in although other mammals have cortex, ours is about twice the thickness and believed to have approximately twice the function, which brings in thinking and analysis and information organization and categorization and all these skill sets that separate human from most other mammals. So as we think about the fall of mankind, it is that tree of knowledge which comes in with that rational thinking. So yeah, to me, that is definitely when the left thinking portion of our brain comes on. We really define ourselves as individuals separate from one another, and with that comes a right and a wrong and a good and a bad, and now we have fallen. We are described as bad. So you know, yeah, absolutely. That story definitely fits into, as far as I'm concerned, the development of the nervous system of the mammalian brain.
Interesting, interesting. So your book Whole Brain Living seems to have emerged as a response to the the TED talk that you delivered that had over 30 million views. Um, and again, might be wrong, but to me it seems like what you've created here is almost a manual for getting the benefits that you received from the left hemisphere stroke, minus actually having the need to have a stroke. So is that fair to say? Is that kind of what you were trying to do with the book?
Well, I think what I tried to do with the book was communicate what I gained in awareness about how we as humanity are organized at the level of our biology. And we exist in a world that is skewed to the values of the left hemisphere, the me, the mine, what I want, what I do, linearity across time. Linearity is also hierarchical. So we're climbing these ladders, and that puts me against you. But if we're both competing for the same rung on that ladder, so I become the individual, and I become my value structure is about me and mine, and how do I get more? And there's if you've noticed, there's a kind of automatic need for more. No matter how much more I get, it's like there's always more to get. So it's just this more consciousness. And okay, well, as biology, it's important for me to be an individual. in order to be a functional, effective human. But at the same time, the value structure of the right hemisphere is I don't have the me, I don't have the ego, I don't have the individual identification, I don't have that piece that says I need more and it's me against you. Instead, the edges get blurred, and I'm just back into, oh my gosh, I'm a biological creature. You're a biological creature. We are humanity. We are in relationship to this gorgeous planet. And how do we work together wherever we are, whatever color we are, whatever language we speak, whatever gender we are? How do we work together in order to preserve what we are as this magnificent biological, pinnacle of mammalian life in relationship to this beautiful planet? And so far, we're not doing a very good job. So, the left hemisphere looks at war and says, I'm going to take from you because you're separate from me and I want what you have because that's how I am. And to think we're wired for that, all you have to do is look at the condition of the world and it's pretty obvious. And then, but to the right hemisphere, the right hemisphere says, but we are a collective whole and we have this precious life. We're here for a finite amount of time in relationship with this magnificent planet, and we want to nurture ourselves in relationship to how do we nurture this planet so that we can sustain life as a collective whole. So we end up with these two very opposite value structures that play out behaviorally in the world, and some of us are clearly one way and some of us are clearly the other way. And so then we have this conflict literally between the values of the right brain and the values of the left brain. And because we're skewed so far to the left brain now, we just needed to bring it back to whole brain. The left brain's not a bad space, and the values are not bad. But when power, too much power, it needs to be balanced by values of what we are as a collective whole. So we really are this amazing biological creature. And when I experienced the stroke and I figured out that because all I had remaining was this beautiful right hemisphere, this collective whole, I thought, the more time we spend running the circuitry of our right hemisphere, our love circuitry, our collective whole consciousness, then the more peace we would project into the world and the more peaceful the planet would be. And that's how I ended that TED talk. And what happened after that TED talk was people came to me with an incredible level of reverence because I was essentially preaching the beauty and magnificence of what we are as biology, but that wasn't what I wanted. What I wanted was people to recognize that magnificent, beautiful creature is you. And you're the miracle. We're all the miracle. And if we treat one another with that level of reverence, then we are projecting more reverence and love into the world. And then we will manifest a more peaceful world because we won't put up with the other stuff. We will love it and help it heal. So Whole Brain Living, which was published in 2021, is my attempt to help other people recognize and understand the four different groups of cells inside of us as biological creatures, what each of those four groups of cells skill sets give us, what they feel like inside of our body, how they behave in the external world, and how these four groups of cells, to me, the ultimate evolution of humanity, if we get there, will be the communication between these four different parts of who we are so that internal conflict disappears. And if I'm not internally conflicted, I'm not going to lash out at you out of balance of the best of who I am, because the best of who I am is a big part of who I am. So it will shift the world. And so that's the goal, is that by understanding our whole brain and how to bring these different characters into conversation with one another through what I call the brain huddle, then I'm at peace in my life because the parts of my brain that were in conflict have had a conversation and worked it out. So I don't have to act out in the world and spew my discontent or my confusion onto you because I have clarity. And when I have clarity, I have peace, because when we have, we are afraid of that which we don't understand. So the better we understand what we are and how we're making the decisions that we're making, we experience peace instead of pain.
For sure, for sure. Something you said that reminded me of the work of Dr. Ian McGilchrist. He's been on quite a few times, and he's one of our most popular guests. But one of the things he continuously says is that the values of the right hemisphere in their proper order are to serve the bigger picture values of the right hemisphere. But the problem in the modern world is that the left hemisphere has kind of it's running the show completely, and we've lost touch with the bigger picture. The
I
the
agree
right.
completely. Yeah, I know Ian. He's actually been in my home. And I agree completely. Master and his emissary. The master is really in the way we both think about it, is the consciousness of the collective whole. That should be the master. There is love in the universe. We exist inside of this fabric of love, and I am loved deeply, and that love from the universe within which I am a part in that fabric exudes into my life easily, comfortably. So I'm just a part of this bigger picture of the energy around me that you are a part of. So why wouldn't I love you? Because you're a part of the fabric of that, collective consciousness. Yeah, I know, and that should be the master. And then the emissary is this magnificent left hemisphere. The left hemisphere, I mean, imagine this, the miracle of the group of cells in the left emotional tissue. It is its job to step out of the consciousness of the present moment, which is a blissful euphoria, step away from the blissful euphoria and look at the blissful euphoria and information coming in and say, now I'm going to compare that with everything I've ever experienced in my past so I can protect myself. And if I have to protect myself, so this means my survival instinct of my past experience. So we're not reinventing the wheel in every moment of our life because a car drives down the road and I step out in front of it. Well, wouldn't it be nice if I could remember that if I step out in front of that car, I'm dead? Right? I'm a biological creature. So I have to have this group of cells that is willing to hold all my pain from the past and hold it in memory so that I can bring and relate to it in every present moment so that I am safe. Well, that's a magnificent group of cells, but behaviorally, it doesn't always look very good. Sometimes it's going to yell and it's going to scream and it's going to push away and it's going to criticize and it's going to be arrogant and it's going to be mean and it's going to be all these little things because that's what pain does. When we feel that pain wants to be released. It doesn't want to be held in. And so we end up with this little character that is all of our pain and trauma from the past so that we can protect ourselves in the future. But if I get caught in that pain from my past and I turn that into a lifestyle, then I'm going to live in my trauma and I'm never going to release myself from that pain. So as we evolve by knowing the different parts of who we are and the different roles that each of these different parts can play in relationship with one another, then I just accept the fact that I'm this magnificent biological creature made up of some 50 trillion molecular geniuses that is what I exude into the world, and every cell plays its role. And when I respect that and I honor that, then I gain the power to pick and choose who and how I want to be in any moment because I know what my choices are.
Powerful. So yeah, like whenever people read The Master and His Emissary, a common response is often, okay, I get it. Intellectually, I get it. But what do I do about this? And it seems that your book is an answer to that question in some ways. And to be honest, like from kind of diving into this work, like it does sounds cheesy, but I'll just say it anyway. It does kind of give you the sense like I'm one cell in a much bigger body here, and I'm here to kind of serve that bigger body as opposed to look out for just me, you know? And I think that's really important for people just to have that sense of themselves in the world, because if that is your basic sense, then you're going to be a contributing member of society as opposed to someone that's like, right, I've just got to just look after number one, you know? But so the book, you introduce the four characters. Can you give us like a brief overview of the four characters, Dr. Jill, and maybe tell us a little bit about each one, how people can recognize these characters within themselves?
Sure. So when we think about these two hemispheres, the biggest difference is temporality, timing. The right hemisphere, it's right here, right now. Right here, right now. So everybody look up and look around and get your brain out of whatever it was in, whether it's a math problem or you're angry at somebody from the past or whatever, you're thinking about the future. Bring your mind to the present moment. The present moment is the realm of the right hemisphere. And in the right hemisphere, we do two things. One, we have experience. And as we're having experience, so say, for example, what's the temperature of the air? Focus on the temperature of the air. How do your clothes feel against your skin? Do you have glasses on your nose? What does it feel like, for example, when you dive into water and you feel the pressure of the water against your body? And then you feel the temperature of the water against your body, and you actually feel the phenomenon of wetness. Wetness happens in the present moment. So the experience of the present moment is the realm of the right hemisphere. And then those beautiful group of cells in the left hemisphere, left emotional tissue, step out of the present moment and provides us with linearity across time. So, oh my God, just imagine, how on earth can I remember what shoes I have on without looking? How can I do that? I mean, that's like, to me, that's a mind blowing concept. I mean, as a biological creature, to be able to do just that, much less remember what I had for breakfast yesterday or what I did 5 years ago or what it was like when I graduated or what it was like when I got married or what all this stuff. How do we do this? Well, these are cells inside of our brain that are specifically designed for skill sets. Okay, so the right hemisphere, it's right here, right now. Left hemisphere, linearity across time. When you look at the brain and you look at the brain stem we share with reptiles. It's pretty much an on off system. I'm hungry, I eat, I'm not hungry anymore. I drink something, I'm satiated, I'm done with that. So, brainstem. And then the difference between a reptile and a mammal is the addition of the blowing out of the top portion of that brainstem into what we call limbic or emotional tissue. And so mammals have this emotional tissue. And then human adds new tissue on top of that. It busts out and grows new tissue, and that is the thinking tissue. So the human ends up with these two groups of modules of cells that are emotional, one in each hemisphere, and two modules of thinking cells, one in each hemisphere. And so each of those four modules of cells, the two emotional and the two thinking, have very specific skill sets. And the basic differences then are going to be temporality. So I take I take a human brain and I open it up like this and I say, I call left thinking character one. Left thinking character one, linearity across time. So this is going to be the group of cells that defines the boundaries of where I begin and end. Okay, it's going to give me language so that I can communicate and I can comprehend when someone else makes sounds. I can place meaning on that. I have me, the individual, and I'm now relating me to the external world. So the external world defines this social norm through our, what I call character one, left thinking tissue of what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is bad. It categorizes, it organizes, it loves to fix things. It's a fixer. And it likes to control people, places, and things. It likes to be the boss. It's loud because it has language. And with language, language, and more details about those details through language is how we humans look at one another and say, oh, that person's an authority. Because not only do they have all those details in their brain, but they can speak about them and they can manipulate them in a way that we can fit into their box. So, character one is that left thinking tissue. I encourage people to name your four characters because that way you can identify them much more readily. I call my character one Helen, Hell on Wheels. She gets it done. She's busy. Where does she hang out? She hangs out on the phone. She hangs out online. She hangs out taking care of business. She's my do go go. She's my boss. So Helen, I love Helen, but I don't want to live my life as Helen. Helen's a workaholic. So then the left emotional tissue right below that is what I call character two. And the left emotional, as I stated before, is all the pain from the past. This is take information from my past, anything that I'm wary about, or I'm cautious about, or I have fear about, or I'm angry about, package it all together in these cells, and then it's sitting here waiting for anything in the present moment experience to trigger it. So I have emotional reactivity. Why do I have emotional reactivity? So that I pay attention to this. We have a problem in the present based on the past experience. So this is where if I'm going to lash out to you, or I'm going to feel fear because I was bit by a dog when I was 6 years old, and now I see a dog that really reminds me of that dog I saw when I was 6 years old, even though that was like 60 years ago, it's like, well, now I have cautious and I'm wary of that dog because of these magnificent cells. So that's what I call character two. I name mine Abby, short for abandoned, because to me, my original pain came as soon as I came flying out of my mother's womb. As soon as I came out of that womb, I was no longer in a symbiotic, beautiful, watery, lovely, wet environment where it was warm and I was safe and I was hearing the musical sounds of my mother's heartbeat and I was being fed intra whatever, all that. So as soon as I'm born, boom, now I'm on my own. So that's for me, that's why I call mine Abby. And I encourage everybody to name your pain, name that part of you something. So that's character one and two in the left brain. And then we go into character three in the right brain. And that's the emotional, experiential, limbic tissue of the present moment. What is the experience like? What does it feel like to be alive? Oh my God, I'm alive. What does that feel like? Feel that, allow your body to really say, wow, I'm alive, and wiggle your toes. And it's like, I'm not just alive, I'm this massive conglomeration of these brilliant cells. I'm not just a single organism out floating around, being attracted toward or repelled by. No, I got 50 trillion working together. So I'm floating around in humanity, and some things attract me and some things repel me, just on a macrocosmic level. So this right here, right now, there's a curiosity, there's an interest, there's an entrepreneurialism. It's not about right and wrong and good and bad. It's about let's play, let's be here, let's be present, let's explore, let's be adventurous, let's color out of the box, let's be musical, and let's get in our body and move the body, let's dance, and let's be alive in the present moment. And then there's this character four, which I call that right thinking tissue. And just think about it. What's it doing? It's in the present moment. It's not in the past. It's not in the future. It doesn't relate to me, the individual. It is literally this big ball of energy connecting to the big ball of energy of the universe. So this is where I share in communion and communication at a whole different level of possibility with everything that is so there's this love, there's this celebration, there's this awe, there's this magical divinity of each one of us that we're wired for that peace. And so as we know all these four different parts of ourselves, I can say right now, I'm being Helen. Helen, character one, she's got earrings in. She's the only part of me that ever wears earrings. As soon as I'm done speaking with you, Niall, boom, they're gone. Because I'm going to go off and I'm going to become my little character three, which I call Pigpen. It's like, let's go make a mess. Let's go explore. Let's go be artistic. Let's go be musical. Let's go play. Let's go stomp in the mud puddles. And I want my friends to come with me because we're all the big energy together and it's more fun when we're together. So when we know these four parts of ourselves, then we gain the ability, it's like a roadmap to who and how I want to be in any moment. And, so many of us, multi-billion-dollar market of meditation. Well, what am I meditating for? I'm meditating to quiet the language centers of the left hemisphere. I'm quieting my experience in the past and in the future. I'm trying to bring my mind into the present moment so I can calm the left hemisphere and shift into the consciousness of the right here, right now, present moment. And oh my gosh, have this sense of awe and wonder that I'm alive at all. Wow. I mean, we're just this big wow. And when we settle into that peaceful graciousness of wonder, everything changes. But it's completely non functional. Right? So we have to have that magnificent left hemisphere and its tools in order to have language, in order to be functional human beings in the world. So as Ian talks about the master and his emissary, of course, I want my master to be the consciousness of love, the consciousness of peace, the consciousness of beauty. And that's the value structure of that right brain. So when I know that and I come from that space and I let that love to beam through me as this magnificent collection of cells, then I can use the left hemisphere skill sets to make my impact as an individual on my fellow man in whatever role I play in the world.
Yeah, the question I think that's going to be in my mind, after this conversation going forward is like, is this action that I'm about to perform, is this coming out of the right hemisphere? Is this coming from that holistic picture, or is this something that's differentiated and just solely coming out of the left? Now, so what's really interesting about this model is that it maps on it maps well onto Carl Jung's archetypes,
Yeah.
Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, and even I was thinking about it in terms of the Richard Schwartz's internal family systems model. It fits perfectly with all three of these really already established models for the human psyche. So I'd be curious to ask, can you just give us a quick sort of run through of the archetypes and how they relate, and also the hero's journey as well, if that's okay?
So I like what you said, though. These are archetypes or models of the psyche. I'm not talking about the psyche. I'm talking about the anatomy of your brain. So why wouldn't every archetype or every model that has any relevance to our lives as humans, why wouldn't that, if it's an effective tool or an effective way of communicating, why wouldn't that lay on top of the brain? So I come to all of this as a neuroanatomist. I care about the anatomy of the brain. I don't care about the psyche. The psyche is the output of the anatomy. So I care about the structure. The psyche is going to be the function. So we have been looking at the psyche as the function without relating it to the anatomy. And that just doesn't make any sense to me as a neuroanatomist because we all share the same anatomy. I mean, we all have limbic emotional tissue. We all have, not all of us, but 99.9% of us have this thinking tissue. So, as we look at Carl Jung and we look at the four primary archetypes that he talks about, especially for the hero's journey, is we end up with the self, and the self is going to be that me, the individual. I am an individual. And in the hero's journey, I'm an individual and I'm being called. I'm having some kind of a conflict, or I'm there's a monster I want to improve, I want to grow. And so I need to calm down that left thinking tissue that says, here's my busy life. And yes, I really need to find clarity. And I'm in conflict. So, as a character one, I am what the Buddha did, right? The Buddha had a contemplation, and he went out and he sat underneath a tree. So he set down his life as it was, which is that left thinking, rational brain fit me into society. It's no, I'm going to go to the woods and I'm going to spend some time with just me. And so, but there are the monsters. Let's say my partner is threatened to divorce me if I don't take care of the kids, and or I do this or I do that, or my boss has threatened to fire me if I don't do A, B, or C, or there's all these threats, these monsters. And so so I have to battle my monsters, and at some point I have to say, I have to go have clarity because my life is spinning and I'm not in comfort, and I need to go find peace because this isn't healthy. I'm not healthy. I need to grow. And so I have to look at my monsters and say, monsters, you don't have to go anywhere. You can stay right here, but I need to set you down for the moment so I can go figure something out, right? So I have to be willing to step away from those monsters and the draw to fight, 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 because that's what that does. But fight, fight just leads to more fight, fight. So I need to settle that down. And so as I do that, and I say to my monsters, okay, I accept you, I honor you, I recognize you, but not now. I'm busy. I got to go on this journey. So then I step into the present moment. And as I step into the present moment, now I'm in my body and I'm walking in my body, or I'm moving in my body, or I'm relaxing into my body. And isn't this the journey of yoga? Right. So I'm now setting aside the constant verbiage that says, okay, for this hour, I'm going to do yoga. And oh, but after that, I need to pick up bananas. And oh, I forgot to do that. So I need to run back home. So you know how it is when we get down the yoga mat, right? You got to set down your monsters, and the monsters are your distractions from the present moment. So bring your mind then into the present moment, come into your body. And how do we get there? Usually breath, because breath is in the present moment. We don't breathe in the past and we don't breathe in the future. We breathe in the present moment. So the best way to bring ourselves into the present moment is to think about your breath. And as you inhale, and you hold that, and you pause, and you exhale, and you think, "Oh, I can manipulate the frequency of my breath in the present moment, and I can increase the amplitude." So I have all this power in the present moment over the present moment experience of my body. So I can shift my consciousness using breath into the present moment, and then I can settle out of my body, or I can do a meditation where I'm walking in the woods, or I'm swimming, or I'm doing whatever if I have an active behavioral type of meditation, or I can really just calm everything. And as I bring myself into that calmness and I really allow this beam of light, of love, to infuse every cell of my body. And these cells are these magnificent little living creatures. And so nothing better than a good meditation to bring the light into your crown and to just fuel all those beautiful cells and to warm them and to bring that healing energy into your body. And then it's like, oh wow. And then it's like, wow, I'm alive. I'm alive. I'm this magnificent piece of life. And as soon as I'm there, that's who I am. I'm wired for all these parts of who we are. And so as the Buddha goes out and finds meditation and finds blissful euphoria, then he's on his hero's journey. And it's like, okay, well, what do I do now? Now that I have found blissful euphoria, I can stay here. Well, not really, because I still need to eat and I still need to go back and, maybe, or I can stay out here and run from all those other parts of who I am, but I'm a living being. And so what? He spent how many years out there? 40 years? I mean, it's like, whatever. Some of us can just take a journey of, 30 seconds, or a journey of an hour, of a journey of take a retreat for a day or 5 days or whatever, but you're there, but it's a completely non-functional space. You still need the left brain in order to find food and feed yourself. You still need to do whatever or not. You're and I. So now I'm in this blissful euphoria. I have my stroke. It wipes out all my monsters. It wipes out me, the individual. It casts me off into character four, into this blissful euphoria. But I'm out there going, well, this is really great. But wouldn't it be great if we all had this and we all knew that we were wired for this at the level of our brain, that this is actually a part of who we are? And I thought, okay, so that was my little journey. And it was like, okay, if I could bring back an awareness to the rest of humanity, then that we are wired for peace, then maybe more of us would choose peace and choose to inhabit that part of who we are and have that value structure be predominant, so that would we would live a more peaceful life and create a more peaceful planet. So that was my hero's journey and my decision making. And then the Buddha or whomever, the hero, goes and finds his answers. And then he chooses whether or not to come home, come back to the original way of being. And so we come back if we choose to do so. And then we have to, another decision we have to make. Do we share what we have gained, or do we just keep it to ourselves and go back to the life that we used to live? And so these are the four parts of our psyche as defined by as the four major archetypes by Carl Jung. And it's the hero's journey. The hero's journey is actually whole brain living, in bringing an awareness. And the way that neurons work is that when we look at neurons underneath in a functional imaging, those cells light up because that's where the sugar is now going, because those little cells are busy and they're working hard and they're eating sugar, because sugar is the energy source for creating life at the level of that cell. So we can actually watch different groups of cells light up based on what we're thinking and what we're feeling and what we're doing in the world. So this is whole brain living, the anatomy of choice, and the four characters that drive our life. And those four characters then are represented by Carl Jung. Now, I will say that IFS is a little bit different. IFS has a real focus on the pain from the past. And whole brain living doesn't focus on the pain from the past. It recognizes that the pain from the past is important information for us to learn from, but it's information to learn from. We're not supposed to make it a lifestyle. And we get in trouble when we turn the little character two, pain from the past, into our lifestyle, and we can't release that. And so IFS allows us to actually pick that little character two apart even more, and to bring in some of the protectors of the character one, with the ultimate goal of feeling the love from the character four. So I'm a true fan of whole brain living. I think it fits into everything of our psyche because ultimately it manifests that.
That was beautiful. Thank you. Okay, so just to wrap up, I've heard you say that the ultimate goal is for your four characters to become so familiar with themselves that they create healthy relationships among each other.
Right.
And you have a practice called the huddle, and you recommend people do this as much as possible, 20, 30 times a day if they can.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what the huddle is and how someone can practice this?
Yeah. So it's one thing to know who your four characters are, and I encourage people literally 20 times a day, stop and pause and say, in this moment, am I in my character one, two, three, or four? And I hate to promote the book, but it's an excellent book. And there is a chapter on character one. What does it do? Answer these questions about your character one, so you can think about, well, when does this character come out? How does she dress, or how does he dress? What is the wardrobe? Who likes this part of you? Who runs from this part of you? What's it really good at? And then do this for each of the four characters so that you can feel in your body. What does it feel like? It feels different in my body when I'm a character one. When I'm a character one, I tend to sit up a little more straight. And again, I got glasses on, I have earrings in. When I'm a character three, my wardrobe literally has holes in it. I mean, because it's going to go make more holes, right? I mean, that's what it does. So I have different wardrobes for for the four different characters. Get to know your four characters. That's the most fundamental. And then bring them into communication with one another. So if I'm in my little character two and I'm brokenhearted and something has happened, and let's say my little pet got wounded, and my heart's just bleeding for my little pet, my little character one will come on and say, honey, can I fix anything for you? Is there anything we can do? Can I call a vet? Can I do this? Can I call a friend? What do you need? And little character two's just in her character two-ness, and little character four can come over and say, I got you, I love you, I support you, I'm with you, you're not alone. You can cry with me, you can heal with me, you can be here, I'm just going to be here and hold you. And then the little character three can come in and say, okay, well, when you're ready and you want to, if you want to feel a little better, you want to go play in the woods, I'm happy to go out and play with you in the woods. And it's like bring these different parts of who we are in communication. And a completely amazingly functional human is one who knows they are a part of the fabric of the universe, and they are literally love in this form. And then they have a really functional character one that gets stuff done. I mean, it's amazing the skill sets of that character one, and then bring play of character three into possibility, because that's where our genius is in the character three of possibility. And then we always have character two to save our lives. And we have to have a healthy character two in order to learn and in order to grow. So character two might manifest often as our pain from the past, but we have to have that pain in order to reflect upon that pain, in order to be able to understand that pain, in order to be able to grow from that pain, learn and grow, and then literally transform ourselves so that we're not just held in that pain all the time. So when we have that level of open communication inside of our own brain, then we gain the power to choose who and how we want to be in any moment, and life is great.
For sure. And just to run through the 5 steps. So it's we breathe first.
Yeah,
We
breath. Focus on your breath. It brings your mind to the present moment. Breath. And healing is going to happen in the present moment. So B, breath. R, recognize which of the characters called the brain huddle, because now you know them well. You've given them names. You know their characters. You understand your different parts. Who called the brain huddle? So right now, Helen can call a brain huddle. So I'm going to call a brain huddle. Okay, everybody there? Okay, and I know what they feel like, so they say here, 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 here. Okay, so everybody's on. So R, recognize who called the huddle. A is, it doesn't matter who called the huddle, appreciate the fact that we have ping, 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 ping. We got four of us here. We're never alone. I mean, this is the beauty. One of the beauties of whole brain living is when little character two realizes she's got characters one, three, and four got her back. We are never alone. We don't ever have to feel lonely because we're not alone. We got the team. The team is there. So appreciate the fact that whoever called the huddle, there's four of us. A, I inquire, okay, who do we want to be? Okay, do I want to stay in my pain from the past and be angry and ruin the evening with you because we've been in a fight? Or do I want to no, I want to go to the movies with you and I want to have some fun. So, okay, inquire, who do I want to be now? Okay, well, little character two, I don't want to be you right now because, we love you, but we want to go have some fun right now. Okay, but we can go back to that fight anytime that you want. And we can do some healing anytime that we want. It's like, okay, so little character two says, okay, well, I'm unhappy and I want to have a conversation, and it's okay. You guys let's go have fun. And so I inquire, who do we want to be? And then N is navigate moment by moment by moment. So let's say now we had this big fight and it's like, so I have a brain huddle and little character two says, okay, yeah, I really don't want to ruin the evening, so let's go play. But then let's say that you're my partner and we were fighting over how you were looking at some chick, and then we're at the movies now, and then you look at another chick, right? And so now little character two goes right back to her rage, and it's like, no, now we're gonna have character two time. So, and then I have to figure out whether or not we're going to have that fight in public and what it's going to look like or not, and then you're going to be going, oh, honey, character two is going to go, I wasn't looking at that girl and that's all in your imagination and you're just jealous as your character two. So, two character twos in conversation or in discontent will never find a resolution. Or you could come in as your little character four and you can like say, sweetie, I love you so much. No, I wasn't checking that chick out. I just, that wasn't true. Or you can come in and say, yeah, did you see her breast, man? Whatever. We're constantly, if there's four of me in here and there's four of you, that means in every relationship we have there's eight of us. So no wonder it's so hard for us to navigate our relationships, because you and me, maybe our character ones, we work together really well. We get a lot done and we're just like, we're a power couple and we're doing great stuff. But our character twos, boy, once they start fighting with one another, we just fight and fight and fight. And then character threes, we play together well too. We're both creative and we're musical. And so maybe we do some of those fun things together. And ultimately, maybe one of us has a really strong character four and the other one hasn't really found that part of who they are. And so they don't really understand that. And so, I can bring my love into this relationship, but I feel like I'm enabling your characters one, two, and three because you can't ultimately meet me in that space of true connection of that character for love. So each of us is unique and each of us is different. We're these unique combinations. And then, I date you, you date me because we like each other. And then we find out we are just not compatible. Well, why are we not compatible? We're not compatible because you like to go play and be your three all the time. And I don't have much character three. I'm a character one. And I think you're wasting your time all the time. And it just drives me insane. So, I'm saying, given these scenarios that are just so common for couples in relationship with one another. So really the beauty of whole brain living is, how do I find my own peace? And once I find my own peace in knowing my four characters, then how can I meet another human and get to know their four characters? And I never really know someone until I meet their two. And once their little character two comes out, how does their character two behave? Do they lash out? Do they hide their head in the sand? Do they become dishonest? Do they run away? And then how do I approach that person's character two and nurture that person, and help them know that they're safe and they can be safe in this relationship because I have a strong character four and I actually know how to love.
For sure. So useful. And I, something else that kind of stuck out for me when I was preparing for this was that in any relationship of two people, there's actually eight characters involved, and that's really, really important to keep in mind. Before we go, Dr. Jill, could you just quickly tell us about the 90-second rule and how people can use this?
Sure. So when you think about any reflex in the body, neuromuscular, from the nerve to a muscle, tap the patellar bone and you're on your knee, and boom, your leg kicks out. That's a reflex, and so that's information out and information in the tap, and then it loops in and it loops right back out, and then you have a muscular movement. You kick. So the same thing happens for our emotions. And so if I have an emotion like anger, and I feel myself, generally I can feel myself start escalating, and you're really treading on me here, and let's say I'm standing in line, and I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm waiting, and eventually I'm just ready to go to another line, or I'm going to spew venom and say something mean, or I'm going to pay their bill so that they can get out, whatever that trigger is. And so emotions run in these loops, and a typical emotional loop, from the moment it gets triggered, I'm going to be mad. the trigger is hit, I'm going to be mad, or I'm going to be sad, or I'm going to be hurt, or I'm going to be whatever I am, grief is going to hit me, then if from the moment that that circuit hits and happens, it's good, generally runs this very typical emotional loop. And from the moment it gets triggered, and then I feel it inside of my body, and then I have a behavioral output, or I don't have a behavioral output, but I'm until because these are chemical, right? So if I have a group of cells and I'm going to become angry, and I hit that trigger, and noradrenaline gets dumped into my bloodstream, and then it floods through me, and then it flushes out of me. That is a loop, and that loop takes right about 90 seconds. And so this is called the 90-second rule. So whenever you're feeling yourself emotionally triggered, if you literally pause and look at your watch, especially if you have a second hand, look at your watch. As soon as you do that, you're pulling yourself actually up out of character 2 into character 1. And as you shift that energy, then now it's just going to run its loop on automatic, and you're going to observe your physiological response instead of engaging and simply being your physiological response. So let's say we're hanging out and you say something, and let's go back to the other example where you're looking at somebody else, and now I'm going to trigger with jealousy. So I see that, I feel that, and I can start ranting and raving at you now as my character 2 pain, and project that at you. But even if I do that, that rarely lasts longer than 90 seconds. Joy, if you've had a good belly laugh, rarely is that going to last more than 90 seconds, unless you keep thinking the thought that keeps stimulating that loop, and then you keep belly laughing over and over and over like a couple of fools. Or I can stay angry for a whole lot longer than 90 seconds if I keep thinking, oh, yeah, he did it hit, and then he did it then too, and then he did it this, and what am I doing here? And da 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 da. And then I can stay mad at you literally for 3 decades.
Okay. Okay. Um,
But it's circuitry. It's
yes.
circuitry. And if I want to have a better understanding and a better control over my emotional triggering and emotional responses, look at your watch and see, feel it. What does it feel like inside of your body? Let it flood through you and flush out of you, and then make a new decision. How do I really want to be in this moment?
Okay. Do you have time for one more, or do you need to go?
Sure.
It's
Give me
fine either
one.
way.
Give me one more.
Right. Again, this might not go anywhere, but something that just kind of came up when I was thinking about this was so you had your stroke back then, and that obviously has had a huge influence on your own trajectory, but also impacted millions of lives. Do you feel any sense of fate there?
I mean, I think about this because some people feel that, oh boy, you chose this. And it's like, well, I don't have an opinion about that. But what I do have an opinion on is, I grew up with, as the baby child, the boy above me, older than I, 18 months, was to be ultimately diagnosed with the brain disorder schizophrenia. And so, as his constant companion, I became very tuned into how can two people have the exact same experience and walk away with different interpretations about what just happened. And so I became very tuned into facial language, body language, tone of voice, just what am I as a biological creature? That was how I got shaped, and that's how my physiology and anatomy made worked out. And so then I became fascinated with anatomy. I was cutting up roadkill when I was in elementary school because I had an aunt who thought she wanted to be a surgeon, and she saw this dead thing and said, let's cut that open and see what's inside. And it was like, okay, let's cut that open and see what's inside. And so we did, and so I learned surgical skills young, and fascinated with I wonder what died. Can we figure out why it died? And so I had that curiosity of anatomy, and I had that curiosity of psychology and behavior. And so then when my brother became a teenager, and it was clear that one of us wasn't processing information like a normal person. I didn't know if it was him or me. All I knew was we were different. And so I started studying anatomy. And when I studied neuroanatomy, my whole interest was focused on what is normal, because one of us clearly was not neurotypical. And then it turned out that he would be diagnosed with the brain disorder schizophrenia. And that left me to thinking, okay, well, I'm neurotypical. So, I want to understand at a biological level. My brother is the closest thing to me that exists in the universe at a biological level. His DNA and my DNA are from mom and dad. So why is it I can take my dreams and I can connect my dreams to my reality and I can make my dreams come true, but his dreams get lost in delusion because he can't connect to a normal reality. So then that's what I'm doing. And then I'm at Harvard teaching and performing research really on how does our brain create our perception of reality, and what are the differences at a cellular level between people diagnosed with schizophrenia versus people who are not, looking at human postmortem tissue. And then I wake up one day at the age of 37, I'm experiencing a major hemorrhage in the left hemisphere of my brain. And all I have is, I'm barely alive. I all but died that day. And then all I have is the present moment experience, and this experience of, oh my God, I'm wired for peace. And then it's like, okay, well, now I'm on my hero's journey, clearly. And then it's like, well, what do I do? Do I stay in this disabled condition and live a vegetative life for the next several decades until my body dies? Or do I try? Do I try to recover? And so I made the decision that, I'm going to be dead one day and I get to be blissful euphoria for all eternity. But right now I'm not dead. I did not die that day. So can I try in order to make some connections so I can rebuild circuit by circuit, and then use the left hemisphere to rebuild the right hemisphere to rebuild the left hemisphere so I can regain function again? And it took 8 years. And then that left thinking brain came back online and said, great job. Now I want to be the boss again. And the rest of my brain is going, oh my God, we're so glad you're back. But no, this is not what we had in mind. We're now a democracy in here, and we have a different set of values. So how can we work together? It's just a phenomenal story. It's been a phenomenal journey. I feel so grateful to be alive. I love I love cells. I love my life, and yet I have zero fear of death, because I truly believe that as the left hemisphere dissolves away, me, the individual, goes offline. Well, I've lived without that for a very long time. So I'm okay with that. And then it's like, to be able to dissolve back into the peaceful euphoria of the universe, to me sounds like a pretty good deal after a life well lived.
What an amazing note to end on. Okay, Dr. Jill, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. Where would you send people after this conversation? Where can they pick up the book? And yeah, anything else you want to share?
Yeah. The book is Whole Brain Living. You can find that anywhere. The books are sold. And I'm at drjilltaylor.com. DRJILL Taylor.com is my website. And I'm actually going to be running some courses this summer in whole brain living. So if anybody's interested in really digging deeper into this material, people just walk away. You mentioned before we started chatting that you have actually used the Brain Huddle. Would you like to share just a moment on that? How it's impacted you?
Well, yeah, like in the past, and sort of building up to this interview, I've been trying it out, and the shocking thing about it is just how quickly it works. Like just how quickly I can shift out of that kind of like character one, like go, 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 like busy, busy, like stressed out, into like a more calmer state. And there's a bit of differentiation there or whatever. And then I can sort of choose in that moment how I want to be. And
Yeah,
it's really quick and effective and powerful, so it works.
it works. It's your brain. It's kind of like just a roadmap to the different parts of your brain. It's like a hand. If you have a hand and the hand's just a hand and you can flop it around and push things and pull things and grab things, that's one thing. But as soon as you can differentiate between those different digits and you manage now manual dexterity, you function with your hand at a whole new level. And that's what whole brain living offers you for your brain. When you understand and can differentiate between the different parts of your brain and how they can work together in order for you to live your life, wow, it takes you exponentially into a whole nother way of being.
You need to find somebody that can get this into the education system, because if you could, if kids grew up with this understanding, it would really move the needle in the world, I would say.
Yeah.
But anyway, Dr. Jill, I'll let you go. It's been a pleasure, and I hope we can reconnect at some point in the future.
Niall, it's been great. Thank you so much for inviting me.
If you enjoyed this episode, you might also enjoy getting our 7 Insights newsletter. This is a once per month email where I share 7 of the most valuable insights I've uncovered in the previous 30 days. It includes book, podcast, and documentary recommendations, as well as questions and quotes specifically curated to help you live a more creative, intentional, and meaningful life. It currently goes out to over 50,000 subscribers each month, and if you're interested in joining them, you can sign up at 7insights.org.